On September 25th, 2017, if I had said Puerto Rico, this is probably how most of us would have pictured it. On September 26th, Hurricane Maria hit down and decimated the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. It's a funny thing about the human spirit. We tend to rise against adversity, and we tend to take care of each other. Did you know that Puerto Rico was one of the few countries to be officially bilingual, as Spanish and English are both spoken there? Of 60 states and territories under the US, it ranks 29th in population, 49th in square miles. As reported in 2015, it has a literacy rate of 93.8%, which, based on the last time the US reported this statistic, is better than 7% of all 50 states combined. The currency is the US dollar, and you don't need a passport to go there. Puerto Rico is also home to 5 Miss Universe winners, which ranks second only to the United States. It also houses the world's largest telescope, and I can confirm it isn't pointed at any of the Miss Universe's houses. It's a beautiful country, and it houses many, many brothers and sisters to the United States. And it will, again, get its beauty back. We will help it to be so. Hello, everybody. I was very honored to be tagged by the amazing J.D. Estrada, and very humbled to be able to do the Hurricane Maria tag game, which I'm about to do for you all today. Now, I realize that I was tagged some time ago, and there was a timeliness to this tag. However, I think that it lends itself to be done right now, and it is a good time to do so, simply because of two things. First, obviously, this episode takes place in the month of when most of our countries around the world celebrate some sort of Thanksgiving. So it's apropos that we give thanks, and in doing so, I'm very, very thankful to be able to do this tag and to recognize an amazing, amazing man, a man that I hold in high esteem and think the world of, and a man I am very happily proud to call my friend. The other reason being is that it comes at a time when other news dominates the cycle, and the initial response and the overwhelming support that was once received is now going by the wayside and being shuffled to a back page or a middle page of the news, and still there's a lot to be done and there's a lot of awareness to be had. So I definitely think that anytime that we can remind ourselves of what we do for one another is a good thing, and thus doing it at this time may lend itself to reminding all of us that there's still a lot to be done, and one of those things that we can all do is make sure that this hashtag has a lifespan and continues its journey to wherever it needs to go. For that reason, I am skipping ahead, as there are 9 points on this sheet to hit. There's a 10th that was more of a favor, as JD said in his video, and if you haven't seen JD Estrada's original tag, I will post the link to the YouTube description box so that you can go check it out, and please do so. It's a very powerful video. It's very much why this man is amazing. He lays it all out there, and he just puts it out there for you, and it's a really an amazing video. One of my all-time favorites. He had asked on the 10th point was to tag someone, anyone, and everyone. So with that being said, I'm going to skip ahead 10 places and go to number 10 here, right now, and say to everybody who's watching this, who has a YouTube channel, who has done YouTube videos, or would like to participate in YouTube videos, who haven't yet, this is the perfect time to do so. I am tagging you. Consider yourselves tagged. You need to do this tag. Take the questions, they'll be in the YouTube description, and if you can't find them in the YouTube description here, you can go to the original tag game of JD Estrada's, and he has them listed there. And so there's no reason not to do this tag. They will be there. You will find them. Go out and do it, all right? So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and take on the 9 remaining points of this game. My answer to this question is The Life of Pi. It's a book written by Yann Martel, but it is also a movie that was adapted from the original text by Ang Lee. It is about a young boy, Pasin Pai Patel, who lives in India with his family, and they run a zoo, and they end up getting an opportunity to move to the West to do a zoo. And he put all the animals and themselves on this giant charter boat, and the charter boat capsizes, and thus all that is left from this devastating event is Pi and Richard Parker. Now, I spoiled it a little bit with that because the book goes into great detail of Pi's life before the incident, but the incident is really where this story begins. And Richard Parker is not a human being. I won't spoil who Richard Parker is. I haven't heard of this book or seen the movie. But he's a very important key figure in helping Pi discover himself, and without him, Pi is beyond desolate. He is exposed to an amazing array of just complete and utter chaos and disaster, and you kind of get a sense of what I mean if you read the book. The movie does a very good job of portraying the moments with Richard Parker that the book is highlighted, but the book really goes into an immense amount of detail in terms of the psychological aspects of what's going on with Pi and the mindset and the things that he experiences, because there's so much more in the book and there's so much more vivid and rich. It's just the handbook on how to handle desolation, really. For this one, I chose The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. And again, without trying to go into spoiler alerts, the book is an amazing journey told by the narrator. You go on these fantastical, whimsical journeys, and you go on these amazing adventures, and then all of a sudden, within a gasp and a whim and just an amazing abruptness, you get hit with the ending. And the ending is very stark, very just right in your face, and it is as devastating and as amazing an ending as you could possibly imagine, and it does have to do with the narrator going home. And it's that old adage, you can never go home again, and believe me, it was never more true than in this story. It is absolutely the most stunning thing you will ever encounter in the end of it. Terms of Endearment by James L. Brooks. He wrote and directed it. It stars Shirley MacLaine. Jack Nicholson won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Deborah Winger, who plays a pivotal role in the lost part of this movie. It has Jeff Daniels. It has Danny DeVito. It has an amazing, amazing cast and an amazing array of actors who just knock it out of the park. Jack Nicholson especially. This is by far the best thing I've ever seen Jack Nicholson do. He's done a lot of great things. This movie is very, very amazing all the way through. Certainly it has moments where it's bumpy and there's a little bit of insider stuff between mother and daughter that I probably didn't grasp fully enough. But that being said, it's one of my all-time favorite films, and the ending to this movie deals with loss in a way that I've never seen any movie or book ever deal with it. And it's like the begin again idea. It is not so much that we are mourning death, but we are celebrating life. And that at a time of tragedy, at a time like this, people just know the right thing to say, know the right thing to do. They know the right thing and right people to talk to, and that all becomes so apparent at the end of this movie, and it just brings it all together and brings what was pettiness, cattiness, and jealousy and rage, all that comes full circle and goes away and dissipates in just a moment's time, and that's just amazing to me. It's fantastically done. It is probably my favorite ending of any movie ever. Now. I'm your host, Joe Crompton. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see all of you once again and do another episode for you. We're on episode 21. And what you just saw was a small sneak preview of the latest tag game that I participated in called the Hurricane Maria tag game. A very important tag game that was created by J.D. Estrada to bring awareness and attention to Humans for Puerto Rico, the hashtag Humans for Puerto Rico. And let's get that out there and trending again, because, you know, no matter what, it matters to keep awareness fresh and keep it going. It's important, and I think that we, as a society, tend to move on to the next big news event of the day. I mean, there's so much going on in our world. Who could blame us? But there's still work to be done in Puerto Rico, and the relief effort is just beginning. So definitely get that out there and tag it, and then come back here onto our channel on Sunday, which this video will post before then. But if you're watching this after Sunday the 26th, then you'll be able to see it on our channel. But we have the tag game there that I did, and like I said, you just got a little taste of it at the beginning of our show. Our show for this episode is going to feature a lot of folks who are essentially part-time indies. And I don't mean that in a bad way. What I mean by that is that they are folks who have other jobs, other interests, you know, being a father, being a husband, doing other recreational things that matter to living your life and living it to the fullest. And indie art is on that part of their journey, but it is just a part of. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. I think a lot of us have full-time jobs, have full-time lives that we have to manage within our art creating space. So creating this art is something that has a lot of passion behind it. We're not talking about somebody who just phones it in and just does whatever. We're talking about people who are very passionate, very strongly doing everything they can to make their art a bigger part of their life. But for whatever reason, it doesn't work out that way. It still doesn't mean that they're not artists. It still doesn't mean they're not successful artists. They certainly are. And the folks you're going to meet in this episode are going to prove that for you. They're going to show you their art is amazing. And I'm so glad to feature them. I'm so glad to do this episode because I too am somebody who has to manage his time. I have a lot going on. And so it is something that we struggle with on a daily basis. And so doing this, I think we all feel a strong sense of community, as evident by the hashtag Humans for Puerto Rico and all the support that you've given that, plus all the support you've given GoIndieNow and others in our community. There's no need to prove that. But as a community, we also can band together and help one another get art out and get more visibility on our art by acknowledging that we have commonalities, and these commonalities help us move forward. So that being said, we also have a brand new review segment for you. JB Taylor has joined the flagship show team, and he's going to be doing indie game reviews for you. So I hope you enjoy that. We have Gina Kubo and Jason Greensides with us doing their book and movie reviews respectively. We have new releases with some readings for you, some great stuff out there to go check out. And then we have a great short film from Jared Wilcox, and Then We're Gone. A little hint of what the title is of that film, huh? But anyway, I think we should just get on with our show, huh? And I'll be back at the end to say goodbye. All right, everybody. Enjoy.
I mean, this film it seems very calculated, very meticulous. It's really neat and tidy in almost kind of a chaotic way. And it ends up being gorgeous and engaging and so smart. How much of that did you develop in pre-production? Or you mentioned that you did some writing on the fly during production, but were you pretty sure of what you were going to shoot, especially the kind of rigorous schedule that you were trying to maintain?
I think the way it ended up really came together, honestly, in post. I had this idea, the central idea, and I don't want to give away how the film works, or this major twist that kind of gives it a whole other thing. You get to a certain point where you can tell each scene is really not about what's going on in that scene necessarily. It's kind of either reflecting something that happened before or something that's going to happen later, and it gives it a more, when you're done with it, a little more, for me, it's holistic feel to it, where it's, you kind of have to see how it's layered to really get the full thrust of it. And I didn't want to just do act 1, act 2, act 3. That twist, that idea was what really drew me to want to do the project. I wanted to see if I can pull that off. It kind of got there when we were done with it, but then again, we had this 2-hour, 10-minute cut. It was just it was very David Lynch, and I would say in terms of just a lot of, you really have to be either stoned or on LSD to like totally get it, because so much was not spelled out. I kind of liked it, but my producer Jason Schumacher and a few others were like, "No, dude, it's not gonna work. Not gonna work, man."
What is your writing process?
I guess I would frame that and say that I'm not a full-time filmmaker. I actually I never have been. Excuse me. I have a corporate job, so that takes a lot of my time, obviously, doing that. And I also have got 4 kids, ages like 12 to 17, wife, a couple dogs, a lot going on besides the filmmaking. Point is, I write when I can. It's usually early in the morning. I'll start writing usually around 4 or 5 a.m. I'll write for an hour. You know, good day will be 2 hours of writing, and then I go to work. And then that's from there. It's corporate finance all day. But that's how it's always been. I've been making films for about 12 years. I just do it when I can do it. So I'll write in the morning, and then I generally, if I think of something during the day for a film, I'll write it down on a Post-it note or whatever I have handy. So, you know, I kind of started a script with a big giant pile of crap, just Post-it notes, random notebook pages, you know, wet napkins from bars, all kinds of shit. I'll write in the car. I'll write it, you know, I'll have a Post-it thing in the car, and if I'm stopping traffic, I'll write something down. It's usually something I can't read later, but I'll do it anyway. So I start with all that, a bunch of notes, whatever I'm thinking about, and then that again becomes a big pile of stuff to pick through. And then from there, I start to kind of outline the script, do a lot of heavy outlining. I've learned that, you know, you start kind of the broadest possible framing, and then you go further deeper each iteration from there. So that I'll create an outline, get to all the story beats that I want laid out, and I kind of have the whole thing in my brain before I even start writing the first word of the script in final draft. So from there, I just start writing, you know, the first draft, and then for Twin Cities, I had a good writing partner, Michael Lent, who's actually a screenwriting teacher at UCLA, and he did a screenwriting book. He's a great guy to know. And for Twin Cities, I would send him a full draft. He would make a lot of notes on it, send it back. Usually would break my heart every time, because it was something that I had to change. And, you know, then I'd do another iteration for the next, you know, another 2 or 3 weeks, send him another draft. I think we did 13 or 14 full drafts over about a year just for Twin Cities.
The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here." You will love again the stranger that was yourself. Give wine. Give bread. Give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the letters, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit. Feast on your life.
So that was that. Then we finally got to a place where I thought we could start shooting the script. And we, for this film, we shot the full script. And then I should say that the way this film was made was over about 4 or 5 months, from winter into summer. You can kind of see that in the film, which I think worked out great in terms of getting different views of the Twin Cities.
Sure.
And kind of showed the time change. But my point there is we only shot probably once every week or two. I just kept writing. So as the film kind of became apparent what it was going to be from what we were shooting, I'd rewrite the next scenes we were going to shoot, the next 4 or 5 pages. So I'm always rewriting in between each shoot. So I'm further writing between each shoot. And then I think for me, the editing process has always been further writing, because from there, we had, I think, about a 2-hour and 10-minute first cut. And there's a lot of work kind of paring that down to the 99 minutes we ended up with. So that to me also kind of just feels like writing, only in a different way. So, you know, you're starting with Post-it notes and just crap, and then you end up, cutting and recutting the film. I feel like that whole thing is the writing process.
I mean, you had amazing performances. Bethany, in particular, that was my favorite performance of the entire festival.
Wow.
How do you like to work with your actors? Do you do rehearsals? Do you do a lot of takes? How do you approach working with actors?
Yeah, that's fortunately, I've heard that a lot from the critics. I mean, they all kind of gravitate towards her performance, and Clarence as well. But she really,
and don't get me wrong, he was great. I don't mean to dismiss him, but she just was wow.
yeah, she's an amazing actor, and she's very organic. Having already worked with her before in 2021, she kind of knew how I work, and she knew the character. So she came into this thing. We didn't really do any rehearsal at all. And the way I work, to answer your question, is we'll shoot a scene, and I kind of do, I'd say, on average, like 5 to 7 or 8 takes, just to kind of, sometimes it's less than that, but I want to get to at least one take where I know we could use that. You know, it's going to be okay. And then once I have that take, I will almost always say, okay, we got what we need. Now let's see if there's something else in this idea. And then I step back, and I just let Bethany and Clarence, whoever else in the scene, to say, okay, you guys, no direction. You just do with it what you feel like doing with it, you know? And that really engenders a lot of very naturalistic stuff, because they're not they don't have me in their head or anything like that. They're just doing what they want to do. And for both these films, we did that. And we use a lot of the stuff that we use was from these takes where they're just like riffing and going off on the script.
And the older gentleman who does the poem is stellar as well. That's the scene that really ties everything together for me personally. But I don't want to give too much away for people who haven't seen it. But that particular scene, it just seems like was that one take, or did he do more? Did you guys do multiple takes for that?
That was there was a certain cadence I wanted that poem that I did have to direct him on that. But once he got it, he really got it. And that's Richard Dooms is the actor. He's probably one of the most known, but definitely the most prominent actors. He's been acted on Broadway and Guthrie, which is a major theater here, for like the last 40 years. He's been in some major releases as a supporting actor. I'm kind of I was very surprised, but pleasantly surprised that he actually did the film. Yeah, he's an amazing actor. He's been doing it forever, and he actually auditioned for the father, I think, and wasn't the feel I wanted. He did a great job of the audition, but then I'm like, okay, I think this guy needs to be the guy reading the poem, is what it needs to be. So I didn't give him that role, but I gave him that poet role, and it was that's another one that folks reference a lot as something that really stands out in the film, and he did an incredible job with it. Yeah, great people to work with, and they really turned it out for this thing.
Brings up an interesting idea too. I mean, when you audition all these actors, it really is about the actor, right? It's not about what they're actually reading. You find something for them if you gravitate toward them. Wouldn't you say that's pretty true?
Oh, it's absolutely true. For me, selecting actors, I do that a lot, where they'll be reading for something, but then I'll hear in their audition that something that's better for something else. It doesn't always, it's not always working the way that you think it's going to in that way. I mean, a good example is like Bethany. She auditioned for 2021 a number of years ago, and her audition was good, but it didn't seem quite right. And I think I initially gave the part to somebody else, and then but she wanted to still help kind of with the film. I became less enamored with the actor I originally took, and then I was just having coffee with Bethany one day, and just being herself, I could hear the character that I wrote, and I'm like, no, you got to take this role, but you got to do it just as yourself, pretty much, not try to be the character. So a lot of stuff like that happens, and similar with Clarence. when he auditioned for John, I knew by like his third sentence he was going to be the role, and I didn't even, we barely even started. And that's for me, right? Something resonates, and I feel the same vibration as the character I'm writing, and that's the person you go with. And I've learned to do that rather than like you can spend days and weeks just watching and rewatching auditions and try to like technically break it down. But exactly what you're saying is like you just kind of feel it or you don't. Yeah. And sometimes you feel it for the role they're auditioning for, and sometimes it's something else. But for me, it always works that way. And when I know, I know.
You ever rewritten a role because you just needed to have this actor in the part?
It doesn't usually work that way for me. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm often just trying to
Find the right person.
Yeah, I think it was kind of what you were saying before. You find an actor and you just like them. So I don't necessarily write a role for them. I just try to slot them into a role I've already written, because it's hard for me to like just introduce a character. I know some writers do that just for an actor, but I've never done that. Because I usually have such a closed-in world in what I'm writing that it doesn't easily accept new characters just for the hell of it.
What do you like about being indie?
The great part is, I mean, kind of getting back to my earlier story, is that the kind of stuff I write, if I don't direct it, it can easily turn into crap. I think it can be very, it can turn very heavy-handed or very something else.
I can see that.
Very, you know what I'm saying, right? I'm very judicious with my scoring, for example, in films, because it can get really potentially too heavy quickly without the right understanding of how it's supposed to work. What I like about doing my own stuff and being indie is that I never worry about that happening and someone taking it and like saying, okay, this is great, but I really see it kind of more like this. It's getting better. And it's like the best filmmakers I like are, like Paul Thomas Anderson, Tarantino, these other guys where they control both the script and, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the directing, and you can tell it's all one cohesive thought.
Yeah.
And that's usually not the case with films that are not super indie, where you can see, well, somebody wrote it and somebody else directed it. And it rarely for me works.
I mean, as artists, we drive ourselves crazy. It's never perfect. And we want it to be so perfect. And we watch it on the screen, and then we see something that it can't ignore, or that we don't like. But I'm wondering the opposite for you. When you saw it for the first time on a big screen or in its completion, what were you pleasantly surprised about? What really shocked you that you were really happy about, that you maybe thought you weren't going to be happy about it?
One thing that really helped the film a lot is, this is my first film where we had a totally professional sound post and sound. And there's a guy here, Tom Hamilton, who's got probably one of the best sound studios in the Midwest. And he really was able to do some additional sound design, but then also putting in surround sound. And then also he had some subtle stuff that I haven't had before in my films. And it just gave it a really professional feel to it, to the point where most indie films, as I'm sure you know, at this level of budget, the first thing that sucks is the sound.
Yeah.
Right. And it just takes you totally out of the moment. And I struggled with that with 2021. I think we finally got to an okay place, but I never heard anyone I filmed sound as good as this one does, to the point where you're not distracted by it. It's actually adding to the story.
Right.
So we had a cast and crew screening of it in this guy's studio. He's got this amazing studio with surround sound. It sounded incredible.
I mean, for independent filmmakers, especially, distribution and posting their film is a real challenge. What advice would you give a young filmmaker seeking film festival entries or distribution? How did you approach the process?
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning process. This is my third feature film, and we got distribution for my last film through Summerhill, and they've been great. It's really tough. It's because you're working with a couple of competing forces. I mean, first of all, it's probably never been easier to make a quality looking and sounding film because of technology there, and I definitely took advantage of that. And this film costs about $100,000 total. Pretty good for how it turned out. Previously almost $50,000, and 10 years ago you could never do that, but now you can do it. So that's great. So it's much easier than it's ever been to make a film. So that's why my advice to screenwriters is always like, don't just write scripts. Go shoot something. Shoot a short. It's not hard to do. It's not expensive to do. So the competing forces are, you're able to do that much easier than you ever have. But on the opposite side of that, the other variable is that you've got this glut of films out there, you know. So it's extremely hard to stand out, and you know, both in getting distribution and the film festivals. With distribution, there's a couple ways to go. I mean, like Amazon right now, you can basically just upload your film, right? You get like 15 seconds for every hour that somebody watches it. It's interesting business model, because they've already sent an email on that. I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then you go through distributor who kind of puts it on platforms, and you know, it's pretty much all streaming now. And but then it's out there with thousands of other films, and so I'm not gonna argue it's really tough to get your film through all of that. As far as festivals, I really learned that the ones that I've gotten into, I've always had some angle with it, where either I know the person running the fest, or I know somebody that knows somebody, or something along those lines. I can't remember hardly any fest where I just sent the film out and then they like, oh, you're in, because it doesn't work like that at all. I think they know the people that they're going to put in the fest, or then they don't. If they don't know you, they're not going to get in. And the higher up you go, it's absolutely like that. But even like the mid-level stuff now with all these films, it's like, my advice there would be, you know, somehow figure out who's running the fest, somehow send an email, get to know them. Because if you just send your film in with your 50 or 100 bucks, it's absolutely almost definitely not going to get in.
Thank you, Joe, for inviting me on board. I'm happy to and excited to be a part of this adventure of yours. Thrilled to be able to contribute to the indie world, indie artists of all kind. My task is to bring a game to the masses, and that's what I've done. And that's what I hopefully get to continue doing. Hopefully I do a good enough job to continue on. The game I am bringing to you is called Team 4-Star RPG. This is an indie developed game. It's a parody of, and also an homage to, a few of the games that the creators love to play. Essentially, these people are sent an advanced copy of a game they weren't supposed to get. And when they received it, they were then pulled into this game. Well, they can't get out. They are forced to play the game, to fight their way through. It's sort of like the new take on Jumanji, and kind of sort of like Ready Player One without all the backstory. I personally really enjoyed this game because of how old school it looks. It's very like old school Zelda meets Pokemon, and Digimon meets Final Fantasy. It doesn't have the flash that those games have, but the RPG style is pretty spot on to the way that you would have to take on those games. It's very pretty, the music is good, the story is funny, it's vulgar at times. I don't mind that. That's how people speak. Not everyone, of course, but people. I like to let people know just in case. This game is available on Steam, and I don't know anywhere else that it's available. I looked. The only place I could find it was Steam. Really, really quite good. It's addictive. But that's me because I'm a sucker for RPG style games. You have to be wise with your choices. You have to think ahead. It's kind of like chess, but not, yeah, at least for me, not as complicated. But it's still complicated. You can't just, it's not a button masher. I am a lover of video games. I wouldn't classify myself as a hardcore gamer, but I'm certainly a gamer. I've been playing since the 90s, the early 90s. Even though I'm 15, I'm just going to pretend you guys believe that. I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog, Super Mario Brothers, Punch-Out, Pokemon, those kind of games. So, you know, I was playing video games before there was a save option. Alright? You know how, like, You younger folks get all excited about the new iPhone. Yeah, that feeling you have when a new iPhone comes out is the feeling I had when the save feature came out. It was like Christmas came early. It's like the greatest thing ever. You can't just save at every point thinking, well, you know, I can figure out a way to pump my life up here and pump my life up there. No, you have to think it through. It's a fun, entertaining game that I highly recommend. I give it a 4 out of 5 simply because lack of sound effects when it comes to a character making a move. It doesn't matter if they have like what looks like a hammer or a sword, or they go like that. It sounds like a gunshot. That's my only sort of thing about it that I don't like. Oh, and I should mention that this game is completely free. That skipped my mind. I should have mentioned that earlier, but it's absolutely free. Not a demo, not free to play now, straight up free anytime you want. And you don't have to have an internet connection. Once you download it, you can literally shut your internet off and play it. So that about does it, and I hope that you all enjoyed this. I'll enjoy the game as much as I'm continuing to enjoy it, because I haven't beaten it, but I'm going to. It has me hooked. Peace.
So Philip, you're someone who has had a lot of life experience. So when you approach being a musician that wants to stand out in such a crowded space like the music business, and an equally crowded genre, you know, you're kind of one of those, you know, bluesy folks who has a kind of that niche. Is there something that having that life experience gives you an advantage for?
I think it's easier for me to push through those valleys because I learned that quitting just really is an option in anything. And it was the same with my, you know, I've had bad times in business. I've had bad times in music. I've had bad times in pretty much every aspect, relationships, every aspect of my life. And, you know, it goes back to the adage that the night's always darkest before the dawn. And if you just keep pushing through, then, you know, you should be able to, you know, if you have a semblance of talent and, you know, wherewithal, you should be able to make something out of it. With that said, there is a time that everybody should know when it's time to kind of throw in the towel. You know, there's times when a lot of people try to force a square peg in a round hole, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But I think a lot of ways that musicians fail is they don't see themselves as a brand. They, you know, any brand requires marketing. Musicians forget to realize that they're a brand, and so I meet a lot of musicians that are proud to say that they don't promote themselves, and they, you know, that's their kind of, you know, favorite thing to say to me. I don't promote myself. I don't feel the need to do that. I don't feel the need to do that. Well, Coca-Cola is one of the largest companies in the entire world, and they still feel the need to market and push their brand name. And so, I mean, you don't meet guys like Jason Mraz and John Mayer and women like Colby Calais. You don't know about them because they didn't, you know, market themselves.
There were times I felt so alone, even though you were right next to me. There were times I could sense that you just didn't want to be with me. When you finally left on that long trip back home, I was stuck sitting on one side of the couch, left to sob there all alone. And I tried to breathe, and I tried to sleep all day, wishing that all this pain would just go away. And you knocked on the door right outside. It was a beautiful surprise. I didn't know where we should begin, 'cause all I know is that I fell in love all over again.
That's what's going to make you stand out, is having that brand. You know?
Sure, yeah, I agree.
As someone who picked up a guitar and just had a natural fit with it, and then you took some lessons later on, what what's something simple someone can grasp right away or fairly quickly that would drastically improve their own playing, just by picking up and not taking any lessons?
For me, it was learning some of my favorite songs early on. You know, you don't want to take lessons. There's lots of resources online. My favorite guy is a guy named Marty Schwartz. I think a lot of people have heard of him, and he's hilarious, and he's really talented, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he puts all this stuff out for people to learn on. And you know, but it boils down to, I call it the Leonidas principle. And the Leonidas principle, there's a story in this book called Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield, and all the, you know, he led his Spartans to this area where they all had to build a wall, and the you know, all these commanders and everything like that are around him, and they're all sitting there talking about the wall, and they're talking about how to build a wall, and we got to do this, but you can't do that before this, and you got to learn this. And all of a sudden they look over, and King Leonidas is just sitting there. He walks over and just grabs a stone and puts it in place, and then he grabs another stone and puts it in place, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should just get started then. You know? And that's the case. You just need to do it. If you want to do something, you got to do it. You can't sit here and analyze the crap out of everything and you know, oh, I need to learn this, but I can't learn this without learning this first. Just figure out what you want to learn and just start learning it. The pieces will fall into place. At least they did for me.
Your dad really was responsible for your music education early on, right? I mean, your eclectic taste stems from that education, I would assume.
He was really responsible for a lot of that. He introduced me to Pink Floyd. He introduced me to Stevie Ray Vaughan. He introduced me to just these Eric Clapton, just these fantastic artists from, you know, the 60s and 70s and 80s. A lot of my musical tastes are directly influenced by him.
All established, and probably if you ask people on the street, they would name one of those guys as the greatest guitarist of all time. So do you think that he had an idea that this is the path you were going to walk?
I think he did. You know, so I mean, I picked up the guitar at 15, and by 16 I was, you know, pretty proficient, I suppose, in playing blues and blues solos and everything like that. And so I was never bad at it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
And so I don't know if you've ever been like lived in like some kind of apartment complex or a condominium complex where like maybe a neighbor was, one of the kids is playing trumpet for the first time.
Yes.
It's tough to get through, you know, and so my dad always said he never had to go through that. You know, he said he was lucky because even when I was playing electric guitar, you know, first couple months I was able to make it sound something like music and competently like music. And so I was lucky in the sense that I had a dad that was supportive, you know, a family that was really supportive, and he could have easily been like, dude, I really need you to stop bending your strings like that and your notes up that high because you can't hit those notes on the guitar yet and it sounds like crap. And it could have easily been that way, but no, he never did that. Never, ever did that. He always said, yeah, I heard you playing. And even though it sounded like garbage to me because I was like, you know, switching from chord to chord and I couldn't get it right or what have you, he was always just saying, no, you got to keep going. You got to keep doing this. This is how you're going to pay for my retirement. He died when I was 18. And so he was actually one of the reasons why I put down the guitar for a little bit. I couldn't keep going. I don't know, it was pretty painful picking up the guitar, and, you know, he liked to watch me play, and he had me even sign this guitar he brought home when it was like a Walmart guitar, you know, one of those ones that's like $30 and it comes with a little small amp. Yeah, he had me sign it, and he kept it in his closet. And, you know, when I went into his room after he died, I went into his closet, and there was this guitar that I had given him, you know, that he had me sign, essentially.
What's your songwriting process? Are you someone who starts with a riff, lyric, or is it kind of a combination? It just happens organically? How do you approach the songwriting process? Actually,
I do I approach the process a bit differently than a lot of people around me. I actually take kind of a theme. I almost write my songs like I write term paper or something like that, some kind of essay. So I start with a topic that I want to write about, and I kind of derive the lyrics from that. So
Yeah, you might be the first musician I've ever met that plots that is an outliner. That sounds like an outliner.
you know, it's I don't know, it just works for me. You know, there's I don't know, I haven't had writer's block for a while since I started kind of writing that way, and so yeah, it just works for me. I don't know.
Does that help? Does it help in preparedness for the studio recording as well? Do you feel like that's a good method so that you know where you're going to hit what you need to hit in the studio?
Yeah, definitely. My studio guy, his name's Dylan. He's up in a place called Woodinville, and it's pretty cool because, you know, he's got kind of a similar process that I do. He starts in one area that's maybe not usual to a lot of recording specialists and recording engineers and everything like that, and he kind of works his way back. And it's similar to the way I think that's why him and I have a lot of synergy when it comes to our recordings. And, you know, early on, I wasn't really trusting in the process. I was wanting to record the vocals 4, 5, and 6 times, and he's like, dude, you got to have more confidence in me than that. And so this last recording session we did, I think I only recorded the vocals twice, and I was just like, no, I think that's good. I think you've got it down. You know, I trust your process. And
you're going to release it now. Are you? Is there plans for you to do a little touring with that?
Yeah. So I had a conversation with my manager, and I've had a conversation with my, you know, some of the other people that have been involved in helping me get where I'm at, and we've kind of set some goals. One of the biggest goals, I think, is going to be opening for a larger act here within the next year. I think I'd like to open for someone like, you know, Shawn Mendes or John Mayer or something like that. That'd be great. But, you know, I also set my sights on being in Guitar World magazine and stuff like that too. So I think there's definite plans for where that EP is going to take me.
Do you have a dream venue you want to play at?
Oh yeah, the Gorge Amphitheater up here that's like, John Mayer did a clinic at the Berklee School of Music. You know, he said you have to define success for yourself. If your definition of success is to sell 1 million albums, then what do you do once you hit 1 million albums? You know, and so for me, defining success is to, I mean, that one of my major goals is to headline at the Gorge in it's called George Washington, the city of George over there.
How was the album building process for you? Did you're someone who puts a lot of thought into their songs. Did you have the same kind of idea putting a theme to an album?
Actually, I did. So there's a lot of poetry behind this album, I think. But the term wavelength, you know, if you know what a sine wave looks like, and I'm sure a lot of people do, you know, it looks like this. It just looks like a roller coaster. And a sine wave in the album cover is going to have a sine wave on it. But I think that's the way life is. You'd have your ups, you know, and they're what I call mountains, you know, and then you have your downs, which are called valleys, you know. And if you look at the way a mountain is, it's all dry and barren and everything like that. But those are the high times in our lives. And then you've got valleys, which are, you know, the low points. But if you look at a valley, it's lush and green, and that's where things grow. And so, you know, we have good times, and then we, you know, where we're high on life and feeling great, and then we have our low times where we're learning and feeling like we just got slapped around. So there's songs on the album that take you to the highs. You know, there's happy songs like the song In My Chords. That song's a happy song, and it's a really, you know, it's like, I hear her name in my chords and I see it when she smiles, you know. And then you've got the song, you know, Best Friend, that talks about my dad specifically and losing him, and it's got some guitar parts that I think pull on the heartstrings.
What did you learn from this recording session that you'll take into the next one? The
music industry is an interesting one in the sense that, I mean, it's really changing. I mean, it has changed so much in the last couple of years. You know, when my dad was younger, he used to tell me, going to the record store, they'd sit around and listen to records together, and now, I mean, you've got people that can't even sit through one song, you know, on their headphones. They're sitting there going, okay, I like the beginning of this song. Now I'm going to switch to that next song. And they're going through 4 songs in 2 minutes. And so, you know, I start writing the music to try to grab the attention and hold on to it rather than just, and also the old way too, like a lot of the artists would write like 1 or 2 hits on an album and the rest would just be kind of garbage. Someone caught me on it early on because I was like, well, I just want to, you know, I want to put out 12 songs on this album and everything. They're like, don't go quantity, go quality. And a small amount of quality in this type of music market now is much better than 1 good song and then 12 crappy ones. When I was younger, when I was about 15, I told myself I want to make music that people enjoy. That's the whole point. I mean, if I just sat and played music in my room and listened to it, that doesn't. It would not have fulfilled my music agenda, my music desires.
Because you knocked on the door right outside. You were a beautiful surprise. I didn't know where we should begin. 'Cause all I know is that I fell in love all over again.
Hi, Jason Greensides here. So last month I reviewed The Beyond by Lucio Fulci. It's an Italian zombie film that came out in the early 80s. And it's part of a trilogy. It's an unofficial trilogy. And The Beyond was second in the trilogy. So I got actually quite obsessed with it. I didn't realise The Beyond was one of those films that I'd seen probably 8 to 10 times throughout the years. But you know, you get that once, that one kind of where everything clicks. Well, that was what happened to me last time, and that was the review that you got last month. And you can just tell the enthusiasm. So I was totally obsessed. I had to go and watch another one of these, and I chose City of the Living Dead, and that's the film I want to talk about this month.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
So again, it's the first in this trilogy of it's a trilogy that centers around the gates of hell opening with zombies. And again, it's a fantastic film, terrible ADR, a couple of awkward moments of editing, and you know, a couple of dodgy acting, little bits here and there. But overall, this film, it's like a precursor, like a forerunner, like he was sort of needed to go through these motions to get The Beyond to work. But it's still, in its own right, it still stands up. It's surreal, it's gruesome, it's gory, and most of all, well, 2 things of all, it's got awesome zombies with awesome effects, and the music by Fabio Frizzi. You'll be pleased I've actually found out the name this month. And I just love his music. I actually think, you know, 50% of why I love these films is because of his music. So again, it begins with a priest who kills himself. He hangs himself, and this opens a portal that starts weird and gross things happening in this town, this small American town. And then the main woman teams up with a guy, like in all of these. It's same with Zombie Flesh Eaters, same with The Beyond, and same with Cemetery, The House Near the Cemetery. They all follow this kind of same plot. The City Beyond, the City of the Living Dead is just still a classic in its own right. If you do like Italian zombie films, and you know what to expect, that it's going to be a bit tacky. There's going to be horrible ADR about the place. And there's always one moment in these films that really gross me out. They really do get you at a gut level, like Zombie Flesh Eaters, the bit with the spike and the eye. And with this one, I thought it would be, there's a moment where a guy puts another guy's head next to a drilling lathe and then forces his head towards this drill. But no, it was the bit where a woman, because the priest comes back in visions, and when he stares at you, your eyes will start to bleed. And one particular moment, without doubt the most gruesome, memorable moment from the film, is where one of the girls looks at this priest, her eyes start to bleed, but then she starts to vomit up her own intestines, which is just absolutely disgusting. And the thing about it, it goes on, it felt like it went on for 3 minutes, just this, it just kept coming and coming and coming and coming, and it just wouldn't stop. It was like, what the hell? But it's totally gross, it's funny, and I believe she actually was, it was sheep intestines coming out of her mouth. So either way, the reality version or the actual in-film version is absolutely disgusting. And again, it has one of these dark, apocalyptic endings where, I don't want to spoil it, but it has an ending that delivers. So I'll give it 4 out of 5. I still highly recommend it. You know, my gut feeling is I want to give it 5. Any film that gets an emotional reaction in a good way, that makes me smile days after, that makes me want to put the music on when I'm at work and just like quietly listen to this weird zombie, tacky, synthy music. Any film like that gets my seal of approval. But I'll give it 4 stars because it's not quite on the same level as The Beyond, which is exceptional. So The City of the Living Dead, highly recommend, check it out, and be prepared to be seriously grossed out. Thanks for listening.
Hello everyone, my name is Stevie Collier, and the great Joe Compton has asked me to do this video for you guys. I am the author of The Four Territories, The Dark Assassin Book 1. It is my first dark epic fantasy novel. That's how I would describe it anyway. I'm also going to read an excerpt about this book and tell you a little bit about it, but first a little bit about myself. I'm a new author. I've been writing ever since I was in 4th grade. Besides writing and reading, of course, I am a big fan of anime. I love languages. I have a degree in French, so I speak that pretty well. Beginner, intermediate with Japanese. I'm a serious weightlifter, and I have a spoiled, fat, white Siberian Husky that I jog almost 2 miles a day because he just can't sleep because he has so much energy. He is a sled dog for sure. So that's a little bit about me. I tend to write darker, so I doubt I could write anything like without it being so dark. Maybe I could. A little bit about the Four Territories. I'll just read the back because I think it does a pretty good job of explaining it. In a world divided into 4 territories, each with their own unique sun, color, race, and culture, Esh is born and abandoned in the cruelest of all, the Red Territory of Rhea, a land in which every day is an absolute struggle for survival. One day, an elderly man discovers the boy mortally wounded on the side of the ash-filled streets and takes pity on him, a kindness unknown in the land of Rhea. Then, using violent and unorthodox training, he teaches the boy the skills necessary to endure the harshness of the territory, skills of a master assassin. combat, sorcery, alchemy. All is going well until a dark and forgotten energy finds its way into the young Esh's body. Wreaking havoc on his mind, it threatens to drag his spirit into darkness. If Esh doesn't use all his mental and physical strength to combat the ancient energy, then he will surely be destroyed. Alright, so I know this is a darker story, but I'm actually going to read a lighter passage. One that I really enjoyed writing. It's a funny scene. Esh right now is 19 years old. He's a big, tall person. He's a hybrid, so he gained the height of the elves. So he's really tall and very muscular. His master, who is always half intoxicated, is telling him to go talk to some girls who are watching him work. Please, master, you know I have no interest in them. Well, maybe you should. You've been working hard for so long and with hardly any play, if any at all. Training isn't the only thing in life, lad. Esh didn't look at him, just nodded. So you've told me, master, but I enjoy my training. It is my play. You know, your father was addicted to his training and never missed a sun cycle. However, he made time for himself. He understood that there is balance in life, and that there is a world outside the punching bags. What are you suggesting, master? Esh asked, now letting himself look at the females behind him. They had decided to stick around and watch him work. I'm saying you should have a little fun. Go out once in a while. Go explore the city. Go... Why don't you go talk to them? Riff suggested, pointing his head towards the females. What? No. They're busy, Esh said, his face burning, and not just from the red sun. Busy talking about you, I'm sure. Now go. Master, I can't. Go on, shoo, Riff said, trotting towards him and physically trying to shove him towards the females, but Esh was far too large for the elder to even slightly budge him. Master, please. That's an order. I shouldn't have to command a 19-year-old to go and speak to young specimens of the opposite sex. Back when I was spry and youthful, you can bet I made it part of my training to learn how to talk the talk. But I've never talked to a female before. What if they don't like talking about working out or fighting? Oh, God be good, exclaimed the elder, slapping his forehead. You don't talk about that kind of stuff around a female, you idiot. You talk about flowers and smelly good things. Doesn't sound like you know what you're talking about either, Esh said, smiling down upon his old mentor. You have 10 seconds to go and introduce yourself before I whip your ass right in front of him. Now go. Esh knew his master wasn't kidding, and that he would actually use that old cane of his to start beating him in front of the females. He found this to be a little less appeasing than the talking, and so he forced one foot after the next to walk over to the group of women. They were becoming closer and closer, their breasts growing larger and larger with each step. He could see their sweat had revealed their nipples through their thin white cloth dresses, and panic arose in him, far more than the time him and Zep had alchemically conjured a miniature Zendra, a beast with razor-sharp pincers that nearly took off his foot before they could kill it. One of the shorter females elbowed the gang leader as Esh approached, and all three gasped at how big he was up close. He must have been a giant compared to all the other males they had seen. Esh looked back at Riff for reassurance, but found that he was only making kissing noises and embracing his cane in a sexual manner. Esh was alone on this mission. Hi, he stammered in the Raylic tongue. They didn't respond. And that's it, guys. That is my lighter reading from the Four Territories. It's a great read. My name is Stevie Collier. You can reach me at steviecollier.com or facebook.com/StevieCollierAuthor or on Twitter at stevie.fiction. Thanks again, guys.
Hi, I'm Lily Luchesi, and I am the editor and curator and one of 16 authors of the Damsels of Distress anthology that was published just last month by Fantasy Publishing. The reason I had come up with the idea for the anthology was I wanted to showcase strong women in horror and paranormal literature, and I thought, what better thing to do than to get a bunch of amazing authors together and have them showcase their heroines and their villains as well. Because strong women are not only heroes, some of them are bad guys too. The work that I am about to read for you is called Death at the King's Court, and it's my contribution to the anthology, a tale set in the medieval times about a vampire and a princess who wants to become one in order to avenge her kingdom. What's the matter, Tesla? Craven asked. Are you afraid of two little vampires, one of us not even a day old? On your guard, Tesla, Princess Mia said, openly challenging the vampire king of the north. I came here for a battle, and a battle is what I'm going to get. She sprang forward, clattering her sword against his. But despite being quite out of practice, Tesla was still a good fighter, and he returned blow for blow. Compared with him, Mia was a fly, and he was a spider, but she was determined to win or die trying. She was badly cut, her armor sliced through, and her now undead blood freely flowing from her wounds. Sir Craven took over, shielding her while he exchanged blows with Tesla. Drink from someone, he told her, someone living. You need to heal. Oh, I'll heal, but it won't be for peasant women, she thought, struggling to her feet. As soon as she was standing, she dashed around the fight to get behind Tesla. Her arm was too weak to wield her sword, so she had to rely upon her vampiric abilities to do what she intended. She grabbed a fistful of Tesla's silky hair, yanking his head back and causing him to drop his sword. Her fangs elongated and his bright eyes turned red with anger, but were also tinged with fear. He'd never seen a young vampire so powerful. No one could overtake him as she just had. So this is how it ends, Craven said, disgusted by their defeat. Yes, so ends the line of Westbourne. You and your little pet shall die slowly and painfully, and you'll know that it is your fault alone for embarking on this journey. He picked up his sword and aimed it at Craven's throat. His black hair was matted with blood, blue eyes red with fire. But the fatal blow didn't come. Mia stood and grabbed her sword. The thin blade pierced through Tesla's long neck, bringing with it a torrent of ancient black blood. One sip of that blood could sustain a normal vampire for a decade, and give said vampire unimaginable amounts of power. Mia placed her lips to the gushing wound, and drank much more than a sip. So if you want to find out how that story ends, and if Mia and Craven really do escape, and also read 15 other amazing authors, please check out Damsels of Distress. If you are on Amazon Kindle, it's free with Kindle Unlimited, or only 99 cents to purchase, and of course there's also a paperback as well. I hope you enjoy the work that we all put into our stories and discover some great new authors to read. Thank you.
First of all, excuse my voice, I'm getting over a cold. For those who don't know me, I'm Amanda Mabry, author, poetess, and one of the co-owners of Our Right Side, for which I am also the executive marketing director. For those who do know me, yes, I'm wearing pants right now. I'm just saying. So I am here today to share a short story with you. This is from The 13 by Stephanie Ayers, who also happens to be my partner, my business partner, and my best friend. And the title of this story is No Returns. If you haven't picked up your copy yet, you're missing out. This is the proof. So we're going to dive right in, and then you're going to go order your copy. Amber's excitement mounted as she stepped onto her porch. A plain brown box sealed with silver duct tape sat in front of her door. She hadn't expected anything, but she picked it up and shook it. Thunk, thunk, clunk. The contents shifted and she almost dropped it. She checked the labels as she carried the box inside. The sloppy handwritten return address bore a stark contrast to the delicate print of her name. She didn't recognize the names or the writing, but her desire to open the box won over any reservations she held. She squinted at the minuscule print underneath her zip code, trying to read it. No returns. Curious, she pulled at the tape until the top flaps opened and displayed the peanuts inside. Something black lurked within the white styrofoam, like spilled charcoal in a field of snow. She sat down on the shiny wood floor and pulled a vintage camera out. It reminded her of the kind her mother took pictures with back in the 70s when she was a child. A small tag dangled from it. Written in the same careful print as her address, Amber read, "Capture a soul." Intrigued with the camera, Amber twisted the lens off, not noticing the way it glared from its nakedness. A tiny label on the back of the camera repeated the words, "No returns." She ignored it and opened the back, delighted to find a roll of film within. She carefully removed the roll, pleased to find it unblemished by light. A twisted face screamed from the first unfurled frame. A wisp of white smoke ascended from the film, caressed her skin, tickled her neck, and rot invaded her nostrils. She gasped for air, but her lungs refused to cooperate. Her lips opened in a silent scream. Splinters from the hardwood floor embedded under her nails as she choked and her eyes bulged. The mist expelled from her mouth and zapped the sudden flash of the camera. A simple brown box sat outside his doorstep. Michael picked it up in excitement, wondering if his grandmother's present had finally arrived. And that is the end of that little tantalizing tale. There are 12 more of these gems inside of the 13 by Stephanie Ayers. Go get your copy now. Until next time, scribe happy and stay sassy.
I feel like my thoughts and emotions are going to overtake me, and I feel so terrified and desperate, and I feel like I can't go on.
Sorry.
This is awkward.
Yes, it is.
Dude, I just heard that Ron wants to meet with you.
No way. Hello, Ron? He asked me to work on Project Sunshine.
We're reverse engineering the human genome in order to develop software that replicates human intelligence.
Why did he pick you and not me?
Likes the way I code, I guess. I'm kind of like an idiot savant, only I'm not very smart.
So, you're pretty into me, sounds like.
Dude, come on. She's the one, really?
So, this is it?
You understand what I'm asking, right? Can we pass the Turing test?
I think I'm done here.
Can I help you with something, John?
has being an officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, for people who don't know, Donald is an officer in the Royal Canadian Navy, given to you that has helped you most in your journey as an author?
One of the base fundamentals of being in the military is discipline, and being an author requires discipline. I'm sure there are authors out there that can go at it totally chaotically, and I applaud them. I'm not one of them. I can't imagine. You have to have a plan. You need to have a way of approaching writing, about applying yourself and getting in there and writing, even just 500 words in an evening or whatever, and that takes discipline. And the one thing the military has taught me is discipline. So I discipline myself, I plot my novel out, I put a schedule together, and I stick to it. And I write and I write and I write.
You're a plotter, per se. You do a lot of prep for your books. How much do you spend, though, on the world building aspect of your plotting?
When I wrote my first novel, I did the dive-in approach to it, and about 4 or 5 chapters into it, I realized that the route I was taking was not going to work for me, for a variety of reasons, mostly because I was trying to build a world without having built a world, and you can't build Lego without a plan in place. So I stopped, actually, for a good number of months, and I went back to basics, and I actually started building the world, and I actually have it in a lot of my notes. I actually incorporate into the back of my novel. It's there, world notes, which explain some. And I built a calendar, for example, and I built a form of currency to work in the world, and I realized I had to build it from the ground up, and I actually really enjoyed that. So I got lost in it after a little while, and but since then I plot, and I built the world, so now I get to just sort of enjoy the world I built.
Is the world something, the details of the world, something you incorporate within the storylines, or is it something that you put on a website?
I reveal the world through my characters, without a doubt, and just the normal narration of the novel. So I always love that about the novels I read as a kid and still read today, how a world gets exposed through the text of the novel, and I think that's the best way. And it's like opening a window a little bit more every day, and you get to see a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and I like to think that the readers enjoy that in my style of writing, and I certainly love it when I read that type of material.
Do your characters surprise you? Have they rebelled against anything that you've plotted for them?
Absolutely. So I swear I must be partially I have alter egos inside my head. So when I write my novels, you know, I have everything plotted. I know everything's supposed to go, but I don't know how many times I start writing a scene or whatever, and I don't actually write the dialogue for my characters. I don't know, it's going to make me sound crazy, but they speak to me, and I just write what they say. And sometimes they surprise me in what they say, and I hate to take their lines away from them. So more often than not, I just sort of leave it in and I work with it. So I love that aspect of writing, actually, the surprises that come from somewhere inside you, and they just come out on a paper, and it's a wonderful thing.
As a writer who's building this world that has existing mythology and history behind it, what do you think is the toughest aspect of incorporating that into the process?
So I have a certain amount of mythology that I borrow from the Celtic origins and storylines and mythology, but I like to think of it as more of a light dusting. So they're living in a world where they're living in, for them, it's the world. They're not living in the Celtic world, they're living in their world. So I throw just a little bit in because I've read too many, you know, Druid tales, Celtic tales, where it's far too heavy in the mythos. I don't want to overwhelm the reader with too much mythology and too much history. And a lot of the questions I get from readers are, is this Earth? Is this Earth in the past? And I refuse to answer that because I know what it is, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. And I like to think that the readers are developing their own world in their head, and I want the readers to enjoy the storyline and the plot.
Obviously, though, it does touch on some mythology that has been existing, and so you did have to do some extensive research, I assume, for that. How important was it, though, still to stay within the authenticity of that, or was it more about just? Was it just I needed this for powdering, and you know I want to stay with my story and not worry about if I'm following the myths as closely as maybe people would be interested in that idea.
There's a few main themes that run through my series, and it's called the New Druid series. It's about druids that have sort of come back into existence after almost being wiped out. So, you know, I bring in the mythos of Gaia. I bring in the mythos, and it's really not a mythos, sorry. I bring in the concept of modern science into the story as well, which I call the word or the truth within the storyline. I'm a huge fan of science, which is why, and I love Earth and I love Gaia. I really do. Not saying I believe in Gaia, but I believe in the concept of protecting this world. And I've also brought in my storyline a group called the Church of the New Order. And so those three themes intertwine throughout my storyline. So in order to make that work for the reader, there has to be a certain modicum of truth in all of that. So there's a certain mythological truth in what I've found on Gaia. There's a certain amount of mythological truth in what the Druids were at one point in time in our history and Earth's history. So that goes in there. I rely heavily on the scientific method. It sort of crops up here and there. I talk about hypothesis and theory and yada yada. It's all there. So I stay true to those concepts without a doubt. The church is a little bit different. So it's not Judeo-Christian. It's not that. It's not any one religion. It's not. I don't try to pin it down. I'm trying to avoid that by all means. But it is a church that believes in the one God, and they have their beliefs, and it conflicts with the beliefs of the Druids, and it certainly conflicts and sometimes conflicts at points with the science, with the word as well. And that's sort of the underlying political turmoil that happens in the background of the storyline.
What does blogging do for you as an author, and do you think it should be an important part of all authors' arsenals?
Oh, absolutely. I can't see an author today not jumping on social media, whatever its form, to get their message out to the readers. And that's the hardest thing about being an independent author, is the market of your product. I hate to put it that way because we're artists foremost, right? But it's you know, this is what I've learned since I've become an author, is that there's a marketing aspect, this sales pitchy stuff with it, which I hate. I just want to tell a good story and get people to read my story. But the way to get out to the reader is to go on the social media. I'm on Twitter all the time. If I'm not on the bus or walking, if I'm not in work, sorry, I'm on Twitter. I'm on the bus on Twitter. I'm at home on Twitter, constantly tweeting, always pushing stuff out. I do a lot of images about independent authors and trying to get, you know, the Twitterverse out there to get a little more interest in independent authors. And that takes effort. It takes time. And the blog is certainly part of that. So the blog for me is an opportunity for me to just get the crap that's in my head and just sort of put it out there. So I'm hoping people are reading it and going, well, you know, that Don Allen guy, he's got some pretty weird thoughts on things, but that's kind of interesting. And maybe I'll come back and read more of what this crazy guy's got to say. And it's not that crazy. It's actually pretty sane. But it's when I write my blog, I write to my readers. I always have that in mind. That's who I'm writing to. I'm not writing to strangers. I'm writing to people who have read my novels or have heard about them, want to read more or hear more or read more about it. And that's what I do. I love blogging. I can't imagine an author today, especially an independent author, surviving without a blog.
So if someone was to say to you, hey, I'm thinking about picking up your series, but I'm giving it a shot, but what would you say to me that would really win me over, that's not in the blurb or in the advertising that I would see for it?
That's a really good question. So I'll answer it this way. This is a series, a fantasy series, that tells a beautiful story in a very simplistic way, not hard-hitting. It will find a resonance with most readers. You'll find, I think, that when you start it, you're not going to be able to put it down. Fascinating characters that are going to open your eyes to the need for us to pay more attention to this world. It's going to make you maybe think a little bit more about how you treat the world and the ecology of the world. And that's what this novel is about. It's supposed to be, this series is about the pleasure of reading, about immersing yourself in another world, a fantastic world, and just putting this world aside for a little while and just enjoying yourself. That's really what it's about, because that's what I like when I read. So that's what I try to write too.
I read an interview that you did for Indie Publishing News, which is a favorite publication of mine. I read that you tried different avenues to sell your books, but ultimately determined that Amazon and KDP were the best fit for you. What did the other services do wrong in your opinion?
It really does come down to what slice of the market share is out there. So I tried Smashwords, I tried Kobo, I even tried iBook, and quite frankly, the amount of sales I saw on my novel were abysmal compared to what's on Amazon. So Amazon, I think, has cornered the market. I'm a huge fan of independent publishing. I love it, and I think what Amazon has done for independent publishers is fantastic. I know there's a lot of stories out there, ups and downs with Amazon, and you know the Kindle Unlimited and all those other issues. But for me, they have been wonderful. My dealings with Amazon, my direct dealings with them, has been instant response, very favorable for me, very supportive of me, and I'm not in the pockets of Amazon, but I really actually do really like what they're doing for independent authors. You know, when I wrote my first novel, I was one of those guys that said, I'm going to publish my first novel and I'm going to become famous. And I remember publishing my novel and going, here it comes, here it comes. You know, it was a rude awakening. And then I realized I was like peeling back the carpet that people have been brushing dirt under for decades. And the independent publishing world is so massive. It is incredibly massive. And I was daunted by it at first. I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to survive in this world? And then I realized independent authors are probably the nicest people I have ever met on the internet. They come together. I had one of my novels was pirated on Amazon, believe it or not. They literally scanned it, put it up for sale, and I found it quite accidentally that it was there. And I wrote Amazon, and then I went over to the fantasy and sci-fi forum. I can't remember which one it was. It's on Facebook, and I just put it up there saying, "Hey, by the way, I was pirated." Well, these people went absolutely nuts on there. They went onto this fake book and started leaving reviews saying, "Don't buy this. This is a pirated version," and it really warmed my heart. And,
oh, that's awesome.
I love the independent author community. I really do. It's a wonderful community.
That being said, did you ever consider being traditionally published? Did you ever attempt it?
I do all the time. I think that's a dream of any author, right? And that goes back because I'm 52 years old, and the only way you ever were published was to send your manuscript in and deal with rejection letters. And I'll say right now though, I prefer this better way, the independent publishing way. I think that offers much more opportunity to people that was never offered before. But I would love to be picked up by a publishing company. But I'm really happy where I'm going. So my series will always be independently published. I love that it's independently published. And if I ever decide to go into another genre of writing, then I will probably at that point look for publishing hunts, but not in fantasy.
Yeah, I think you've already answered my other question. Well, I think it's pretty obvious what's the most rewarding thing for you in terms of the self-publishing. It's the community, right? I mean, that's what's really led you to stay where you're at.
Yeah, I've met so many terrific people. It's just because we're all, we're all like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
We're all the same people, and it's refreshing. It really is. I feel like I'm part of a global community, and I know that I could reach out in an instant, get support and help from people, and I would do the same, obviously, as well. It's wonderful. I'm an old D&D sci-fi convention geek kind of guy, and I love that community. How we all sort of come together and work together and have the same geek ideas, and I adore that, and I get that in the independent publishing probably much more so than anything else in my life. So I really do appreciate it.
Hello, welcome to GoIndieNow, Gene Okubo Book Reviews, and today I'm reviewing Daughter of the Night. It's a YA book. Let me get that right up there. By Tiki Kos. And there it is, Daughter of the Night. I recommend this book. I really do. It's a YA book. I tend to not like YA books, but with this book and with a couple of YA books that I've read, I actually liked them. I thought they were very good. I would give this book 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. I plan to on Amazon. As soon after this review comes out, I'm gonna jump on Amazon and post my review there. Now, this book it takes you a little bit on a ride. I think in the beginning you get a little bit thrown off kilt, and I did. I was sitting there going one way with this book, and I really wanted to hate it. I did. I really did not want to like this book. The more I read into it, the more I read it, and the more I got into it, and the deeper I went, the more that I started to like it. I did. But again, in the beginning, just the tone and how it started, I did not really want to finish this book, but I did. I'm glad I did. I'm really happy that I got to the end of this book, and I'm really happy that I read this book. So yeah, go and check it out right now. Get yourself a copy, and I think you're gonna enjoy it. Daughter of the Night by Tiki Kos, and I think you're gonna enjoy the character Selena. I think you're gonna enjoy how she's created, how she's built up, and how she discovers herself, and you discover more about her in this book. So I think you're gonna enjoy that about this book. And that being said, you guys have a good one. This is Jin Okubo at GoIndieNow.
Like I mentioned in the opening, the artistry aspect of what we do and who we are sometimes has to take a second fiddle or backseat to what we need to do as human beings to survive and be productive in our world. But that doesn't stop you from making great art. In fact, it probably pushes you even further. You thrive on that adrenaline and excitement. Because, let's face it, even if you were doing it full time, you don't have all the time in the world. Time is not on your side at any point in your life. So, really, truly, you have to embrace the time that you have and make the most of it. And these guys did just that. And I'm so grateful to all of them for taking the time to talk to me. I'm so grateful for all of you to sit and watch our show. I hope you really enjoyed it. Jared Wilcox is up next. He's got a great short film. He's going to talk to you a little bit about it, and then we'll play it, and then we'll see you next time. All right, everybody. Remember, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you next time.
Hello, my name is Jared Wilcox, and I am the writer-director of the film you're about to watch, titled Gone. Gone is a 2.5-minute-ish short film, comedy short film, about a guy who tries to take out his trash in the middle of the day, and it doesn't exactly go as planned. Gone was just a short little project that I shot in about an hour and a half or so. I did it with no crew. I was the DP, the director, the everything star even. And the only person I had with me was my mother, who was the one actually throwing the trash bags at me throughout the film, which I'd say she probably enjoyed pretty well. Enjoy the film, guys.
you.